The thing about being the practical one in your family is that people assume practical means pushover. For 32 years I'd been the daughter who didn't cause problems, didn't ask for help, didn't make waves. My sister Vanessa was the opposite. Dramatic, impulsive, always in crisis, always needing rescue. I learned early to be self-sufficient. While Vanessa bounced between jobs and boyfriends, I worked 2 jobs through college, graduated with honors in finance, and built a career as a portfolio analyst. By 25 I was investing aggressively. By 30 my portfolio had crossed $500,000. My parents knew I had investments. What they didn't know, because I'd never told them, was exactly how much I'd accumulated. They assumed I had maybe 50 or 60,000 tucked away. Comfortable but nothing extraordinary. Vanessa, meanwhile, had burned through 3 inheritance payments from our grandparents, maxed out 4 credit cards, and was currently underwater on a car loan for a BMW she couldn't afford. She was 30 years old and still living in mom and dad's basement. The wedding was my cousin Rachel's. A beautiful June ceremony at a vineyard estate 2 hours from home. The reception was elegant, expensive, everything you'd expect from my aunt's side of the family. 55 guests packed into a converted barn with Edison lights and farm tables. I wore a navy dress I'd bought on sale and sat at table 7 with some second cousins I barely knew. My parents were at table 3 with Vanessa, who'd brought her latest boyfriend, a guy named Derek who worked in cryptocurrency consulting, which I was 90% sure meant he'd lost money on Bitcoin. Everything was fine until dessert. My father stood up, tapped his wine glass with a fork and cleared his throat. I thought he was about to make a toast to the bride and groom. Instead he looked directly at me. "I want to take a moment to address something important," Dad said, his voice carrying across the barn. "Family matters." My stomach dropped. Every head in the room turned toward him. "My daughter Melissa has been very blessed financially," he continued. My face went hot. "She's worked hard, invested wisely, and built up quite a nice nest egg." People were staring at me now. I could feel 55 pairs of eyes. "Her sister Vanessa is going through a difficult time," Dad said. "And we've discussed it as a family." No, we hadn't. And Melissa has agreed to transfer her investment portfolio to Vanessa, to give her sister the fresh start she deserves. The room went silent. Then someone started clapping. Then more people joined in. Vanessa was crying, hands over her mouth, acting shocked and grateful. Derek was squeezing her shoulder supportively. Mom was smiling at me, nodding encouragingly, like I was supposed to stand up and accept applause for my sacrifice. I didn't stand. I didn't smile. I said very clearly, "No, I haven't." The clapping died instantly. "What?" Dad's smile faltered. "I haven't agreed to anything," I said louder now. "Because nobody asked me." Mom's face flushed. "Melissa, don't make a scene. You just announced to 55 people that I'm giving away my life savings," I said. "You made the scene, Mom." "Not me." Vanessa was staring at me like I'd stabbed her. "Are you serious right now? You're going to humiliate me at a family wedding?" "You're not entitled to my money," I said flatly. That's when Dad snapped. He crossed the distance between our tables in 4 strides and grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt, yanking me to my feet. "You ungrateful, selfish. We raised you better than this. Let go of me." My voice was shaking but I didn't pull away. I met his eyes. "You have more than enough," he hissed close to my face. "Your sister has nothing. This is what family does." "Family doesn't ambush each other at weddings," I said. He squeezed harder. I felt his fingers digging into my bicep, felt the rage radiating off him. Around us, people were silent, watching, uncomfortable but not intervening. I pulled out my phone with my free hand. "What are you doing?" Mom demanded. I didn't answer. I scrolled to a contact labeled David M. and pressed call. It rang twice. "Melissa." David's voice was professional, slightly concerned. "Everything okay?" "I need you at the Willowbrook Estate Vineyard," I said calmly. "Bring the portfolio documentation. All of it." There was a pause. "Are you in danger?" "Just bring the documents," I said. "As fast as you can. I'm 40 minutes away. I'll be there." I hung up. Dad had released my arm, stepping back like my phone call had physically pushed him. He looked uncertain now, the bluster draining. "Who was that?" Mom asked. "My financial advisor," I said. He's bringing proof of exactly what I own. Since apparently we're doing this publicly. Vanessa laughed, sharp and bitter. Oh, so now you're showing off? Rubbing it in. You announced that I was giving you $500,000 without asking me first, I said. I'm just setting the record straight. The number hit like a bomb. $500,000? Vanessa's voice went shrill. You have $500,000 and you won't help me? I didn't say I have $500,000, I said quietly. Mom's eyes narrowed. How much do you have? I didn't answer. I sat back down, my arm throbbing where Dad had grabbed it. I could already feel the bruise forming. The reception tried to continue. The bride and groom cut the cake. Music played. But everyone was watching our table, whispering, waiting. 38 minutes later, David walked into the barn. He was wearing weekend casual, khakis and a polo, but he carried a leather portfolio case that screamed professional. David was 52, silver-haired, and had been managing my investments for 7 years. He'd helped me turn $80,000 into something I was genuinely proud of. He spotted me immediately and walked over. Melissa. He nodded politely. Your parents, I presume? Dad stood. Now listen here. Mr. Parker, Mrs. Parker. David's voice was cool, controlled. I understand there's been some confusion about your daughter's financial situation. There's no confusion, Mom said tightly. She has money. Her sister needs help. It's simple. It's actually not simple at all, David said. He opened his portfolio and pulled out a bound document. This is a complete record of Melissa's investment portfolio, current as of Friday. I've also prepared a summary of her investment history, deposits, returns, and projected growth. He laid the papers on the table. My parents leaned in. I watched their faces change as they scanned the first page. That can't be right, Mom whispered. It's entirely correct, David said. Melissa has been investing aggressively since age 23. She's contributed between $18,000 and $32,000 annually, depending on her income. Her portfolio has performed exceptionally well. Dad's finger traced down a column of numbers. His hand was shaking. The current value, printed in bold at the top of the summary page, was $847,293. Jesus Christ, Vanessa breathed, reading over Dad's shoulder. That's not possible, Mom said. She doesn't, you don't make that kind of money. I make $96,000 a year, I said evenly. I live in a modest apartment. I drive a 7-year-old Honda. I don't take expensive vacations. I invest 30% of my income and have since I was 23 years old. This is what compound interest looks like when you're disciplined. Vanessa grabbed the documents, flipping through them like she'd find proof of fraud. You've been hiding this? I don't owe you a breakdown of my finances, I said. David cleared his throat. If I may, there's another document you should see. He pulled out a second set of papers. This is a record of every loan, gift, and financial support payment Melissa has provided to family members over the past 9 years. My parents went very still. She's loaned you $42,000, David said, looking at my parents. For your kitchen renovation, your roof repair, and 3 separate car payments. None of which have been repaid. Mom's face drained of color. She's given or loaned Vanessa $68,000 over the same period. Security deposits, credit card payments, car insurance, medical bills, and what was labeled as emergency funds. David's tone was neutral, but the numbers were damning. Melissa. Dad's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell us you were keeping track? I wasn't keeping track, I said quietly. David was. That's what financial advisors do. They track everything. Vanessa was staring at the papers like they were written in another language. You're saying I owe her $68,000? I'm saying she's already given you $68,000, David corrected. Which makes the request for her entire portfolio particularly egregious. We didn't know, Mom said weakly. You didn't ask, I said. You assumed. You always assume that because I don't complain I don't struggle. You assume that because I'm stable I'm not sacrificing. Every dollar I gave you was a dollar I didn't invest. Do you know what $68,000 invested at 12% annual return over 9 years would be worth now? David answered before they could. Approximately $212,000. Vanessa made a choking sound. I gave up $200,000 in growth to help you, I said, looking at my sister. And you just sat there while Dad announced I'd give you everything else. I didn't know he was going to do that, Vanessa whispered. You didn't stop him either. The bride's father appeared at our table looking uncomfortable. Is everything all right here? You're upsetting Rachel. We're leaving, I said, standing. I'm sorry for the disruption. I looked at David. Thank you for coming. Of course. He gathered his documents, leaving one copy on the table. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, Vanessa, I'd strongly suggest you review these numbers carefully. And perhaps consult with a family therapist before making any additional financial requests. We walked out together. Behind us, I heard Vanessa burst into tears, heard Mom trying to calm her down, heard Dad saying something angry and defensive. Outside, the June evening was cool and perfect. String lights twinkled in the vineyard. Inside the barn, music played on. Are you okay? David asked. I will be, I said. He squeezed my shoulder gently. You did the right thing. Boundaries are important, especially with family. I drove home that night in silence, my phone buzzing with texts I didn't read. When I finally got to my apartment, my modest, paid-for apartment, I poured a glass of wine and sat on my balcony. The texts kept coming. Vanessa calling me selfish. Mom begging me to reconsider. Dad saying I'd ruined Rachel's wedding. But there was one text that mattered from my cousin Rachel herself. Thank you for standing up for yourself. That took guts. Also, my dad's a lawyer. If you want to pursue battery charges for the arm grab, he'll help. That bruise looks bad. I looked at my arm. The bruise was already purpling, finger-shaped and ugly. I didn't press charges. But I didn't respond to my parents either. 3 weeks later, Mom called. Your sister moved out. She's living with Derek. Hey, I said. She's really struggling, Melissa. She's 30 years old. Struggling is part of growing up. There was a long silence. Then quietly, we failed you, didn't we? I didn't answer right away. When I did, my voice was steady. You assumed I didn't need you because I didn't ask for help. But I did need you. I just needed different things. I needed you to be proud of me without trying to redistribute my success. I needed you to see me. I see you now, Mom whispered. It wasn't enough. But it was something. I never transferred my portfolio. Vanessa and Derek broke up after 4 months. She got a real job, started therapy, and slowly started paying me back. $50 a month, which at her current rate would take 113 years. But she was trying. And I respected that. My parents and I are rebuilding. Fully. With boundaries. And my portfolio? It crossed $1 million last quarter. I'm practical after all. That's what I do.